Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel with my first official book review. All right, we're gonna be doing Ultra 85 by Logic. Now, this book, I have a lot to say about it, and I have notes on my phone about what I want to talk about it. Just some little bulletin points, you know. Um, yeah, I'll start off by saying that obviously this book was written by Logic, and I would be lying if I said that wasn't the main reason that I bought that book. I saw it. I remember seeing the tab, and I was like, Logic. I'm like, is that the author's last name? And then I picked it up, turned it around, and I was like, oh, this is the rapper Logic. And I'm not gonna lie, um, I didn't have high expectations going into this book, like at all, which is kind of the reason why I bought it. I figured it would be like the book equivalent to like a movie you know is going to be bad, but that's why you see it so that you could riff on it and make fun of it. And that's like the charm and the appeal and the fun of watching that movie. Um, and in a way, it kind of was like that, but it wasn't. I'll admit the first few chapters were annoying, and there were multiple times where I put it down and just went, like, this book is going to be an arduous fucking chore for me to get through. And it's because of a lot of the pop culture references. There's a lot of them. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think in the form of a book, it's not that great. Doesn't really work as well. And also, like, references to pop culture are not jokes. They're just references to pop culture. Like, you can make a joke out of them, but just referencing them is not really a joke. Like, there was this one time where they were like digging through tunnels, and one of the characters literally repeats the line, "Oh, now I know what a TV dinner feels like." Or they didn't even repeat the line. I think they said we were doing it like TV dinner style or something like that. But they were referencing Die Hard, the line. And literally in chapter two, it throws like five different references at you within the first paragraph, you know? Like it says, Kai was fresh off a heartbreak, though break maybe isn't a valid enough word for what happened to Kai. More like his heart got ripped out of his chest cavity, Temple of Doom style, before getting curb stomped like American History X, tossed in a trash chute like Episode 4 A New Hope, and then spaced like aliens and exploded like Total Recall. I get what you're going for. That's some good imagery. But the pop culture references, man, you just barraged us with five. Five in one paragraph right off of the rip. And I get that was kind of like a main inspiration for him, I guess, was he wanted to show his love and his passion for pretty much anything that inspired him, like movies, music. And that's the thing, is that one of the main characters was named Fiona Applebaum after the Tribe Called Quest song. Although we find out what her real name is later, and that's just kind of like the nickname they give her. Um, but yeah, that also brings me to like the dialogue. It's not the best. The way they talk is like how kids today talk. Like, yo, what's up, bro? How you doing, man? Yo, that shit is lit. We out here popping, man. We vibing, dog. It's like that, which again, nothing wrong with that if that character is like that age demographic. But when these characters are like in their 40s and 50s and they're still talking like that, it's a bit doesn't really work in my opinion. And I get it. It's like two dudes going on a space adventure and they're friends. But yeah, I mean, I guess in a way it does kind of spice up science fiction. I never really read anything that kind of deviates from the norm of like hard science fiction where it's like they're going super in depth and being real articulate with their science scientific sayings and all that. You know what I mean? Like they're going hard into science, explaining everything. So it is a bit refreshing, but it was also kind of annoying where everyone kind of pretty much talks like that. They kind of talk the same with that, like, yo, dude, bro, we vibing, lit, popping, fam. What's good, man? Where we be at? Yo, we was doing this and we was doing that type of vernacular. Um, I mean, after a while, you do kind of get warmed up to it, though not like 100% where you're kind of just like ignoring it. It's always kind of just like prevalent, standing in the back of my mind. At least that's what it was for me. But yeah, the first couple chapters were annoying, but after the first couple, it kind of picks up, and I will say, in general, the story feels a bit rushed in certain aspects, which at first I didn't necessarily mind because it was like, all right, finally a change of pace, something's happening now. We're picking up, we're going on this adventure. But yeah, I would say the whole book kind of feels rushed. I mean, some areas seemed like those were the main focus of the story, and they were really. I don't want to say they were well written, but you know what I'm trying to get at. They worked really, really well. And, you know, it sucks too because I actually did have a fun time reading this. I thought it was a fun little adventure, a fun, nice little story. Um, oh, and quickly summed up the story. It's like there's these people living on a space station, and then there's this planet called Paradise, and only a select few people are allowed to go. And these people accidentally discover Paradise while just doing the regular routine of like I think they were like collecting debris in space or like mining for like some type of minerals or something. And then they accidentally discover Paradise and realize it is not well, it's anything but a paradise. That's pretty much what it says on the back, so I'm not like spoiling anything. It says here, Earth no longer inhabitable. The remainder of humanity lives on a giant space station. Two pilots find the planet Paradise, where only most promising citizens are allowed to live. Blah, 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 blah. They discover just how different Paradise is from what they imagined and how they must change it for the better. So that's pretty much the whole plot. And like I said, it kind of moves pretty fast, with some areas kind of being like more sectioned off and focused on. Um, I would also say some of the world building was lackluster. Like I could see the vision that Logic had behind creating this book, but some things were not really built upon all that great, and it kind of left some stuff open ended or in the air, and that was kind of a bummer because it kind of defeats the purpose of bringing them up and then deeming them important. Like there are some characters where they're talked about throughout the whole book, and then you finally meet them, and it's like goodbye. You're tossed to the wayside. You were there for essentially no reason. Um, I don't want to say for no reason, like you had a reason, but it's like still, I feel like we could have gotten more out of that character. They didn't really, at least for me, seem like their character, like I said, was well written or really, you know. Let's see what other bullet points that I have. Yeah, the world building was lackluster. Um, like I said, I was able to see the vision, and there were some really cool things that if I feel like you went in depth with, would really add to the story. I think this would be a case where making the story longer would help instead of hinder the story. Um, yeah, comedic tone was yeah. So the book had an overall comedic tone, and I didn't necessarily have a problem with that. I kind of like comedy, and it breaks up the monotony of some of the more serious science fiction. But I love comedy. I love sci-fi. You combine the two, like it sounds great. But like I said, the comedy was mainly in the form of making references to pop culture, which they give a reason for why they know a lot of this takes place in 2115, and they have a reason as to why they know all these different pop culture movies, songs, books, whatever. Um, But yeah, that was most of the comedy, but I feel like it was too comedic. Even at times when it was supposed to be serious and dramatic, they had that hint of comedy, that hint of comedic in the air. Hint of comedic in the air. Yeah, it's a great sentence on my part. But yeah, and it always kind of felt like that comedic tone loomed overhead and it kind of took away from anything serious. Logic could be a good comedy writer. I don't really think he's well equipped for writing really anything serious, at least in novel form. You know, um, it just couldn't really bring myself to really care because he doesn't really give any of us a real reason to care about any of his characters. You know, I mean, I care about them only because I want the story to continue. I care more about the story than I care about the characters, and I feel like you need to have an equal balance of I care about the story, but why do I care about the story? Oh, because I care about the characters. I care about the characters. Why? Because I care about the story. You need an equal balance other than just the story carrying the entire book through. It's the story carrying the story. The characters don't really carry the story. There are some characters that I do like, that I think are pretty funny and they serve their purpose, but you know what their purpose is and they do it well. You know, they're kind of one dimensional. Brings me back to another bullet point. The characters weren't too developed, but like I said, it didn't really matter. It really wasn't about the characters. It was more or less about the story. Logic had this idea for a story, and he wanted to tell it, and he did. He did the best he could, and I think he did his job in telling a fun little adventure story. Um, but yeah, there were some characters that I honestly, like I said, I feel like if Logic made this book longer and went in depth, there would be a lot more. It would help it a lot more. It would just be an overall better book. Not that that book was horrible and that I'm saying you shouldn't read it, you know. Uh, but like I said, I feel like it could have been better. I really see the vision that Logic was going for, the vision that he had when crafting these characters and this world. And I know it sounds like I'm kind of shitting on it, but I'm not. Like I actually enjoyed the story. It was good. It just felt a bit lackluster, but it did, like I said, defy my expectations. I did not really expect much of anything when I first came across this book. When I first, sat down to read it, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be one of those books. It's gonna be so bad I could just laugh at it. But I found myself falling in love with the characters and being immersed in their world and their story despite not having much, which is kind of why I'm so bummed out. Because, like I said, like I really kind of liked where Logic was going. I liked the vision that he had set up, but he didn't really go anywhere other than surface level, which again was good for the book, but that was it. Because this is more of an outside adventure where you're not really. Honestly, I wrote that bullet point down. I don't even know what I meant outside adventure. I guess what I'm saying is that it was more of for the story than it was a journey of the characters and introspection and anything like that. The ending was epic and awesome, but had potential to be something more. Like I said, it was a really cool ending, but a lot of it was rushed. That's what it comes down to. At least for me, I don't know if it was rushed. I don't know what the story behind this book and the publication process and the creative process behind it. But like that's what a lot of it comes down to. It just felt like there could have been more, you know. But like I said, you could see and feel the passion behind this book, behind Logic's vision and his creativity, and you could tell he's a very creative individual. I mean, he's a best-selling rapper. Not one that I personally listen to. I'm not one of those Logic haters, but I'm not exactly a Logic fan. Like, I'll listen to him. I won't really go out of my way to listen to his newer stuff, but, his album Tits, The Incredible True Story, that's probably one of my favorite rap albums. Also, because it's kind of nostalgic for me. Came out when I was in like 11th grade. And, was it 11th grade? I think it came out in 2014, so no, I wasn't in 11th grade. But it became like more prominent and kind of gained traction when I was in 11th grade. So I remember sitting on the school bus listening to that on those cold winter mornings. But, anyways, I digress. We're not here to talk about his music, here to talk about his book. And yeah, it was a fun little adventure, and I feel like it deserves to be read. I truly feel like this book deserves a chance if you can bear through the bro dude dialogue, as I'm gonna call it, and the obsessive pop culture references. And I'm not gonna lie, this book didn't make me laugh. It did make me groan a little bit at first, but I kind of grew accustomed to it. But the one big laugh I got to came at the end of the book, where they're being interviewed by these two people from Babel, and Quentin, the main character, he's getting interviewed by like this cute, beautiful girl, and then his buddy Kai is like bitching about, oh man, how come you always get all the beautiful woman, and the guy interviewing me is this like 6'5" fucking masculine dude, and his third leg is bigger than my forearm or something like that, and I don't know, it just kind of was unexpected. I kind of just made me laugh a little bit, and I was like, all right, that got me. I was laughing, but like I said, if any of this sounds interesting, and I realize I didn't really talk too much about the plot. I really don't want to spoil it, but again, they go on these cute little I say cute as if like it's like a little My Little Pony or Strawberry Shortcake, but no. They go on this little adventure in Babel where they kind of get sucked in through a wormhole, and I said adventure on Babel. So they're stationed on Babel, and then they go on this space mission to get sucked through a wormhole, and then they go on this adventure where they're fighting these razor bats that are attacking them, and then they have to fight these cyborgs, and they have to go through the town pretending to be these cyborgs so that they don't get spotted. It's like they have this whole premise set up where they have to bring down pretty much this entire corrupted government, this corrupted system. And that's pretty much it without going too much in depth. But if you want them to, if this sounds interesting, fighting, bat monsters, flying bat monsters, fighting cyborgs, radiation poisoning, stealth, blackout missions, trying to take down a corrupt governmental system. That's pretty much it in a nutshell without spoiling too much of the book. But yeah, like I said, I think this book deserves to be read. There's definitely potential. There's something here, and I would love if maybe he made like not necessarily a sequel, but something like the Silmarillion. Like it goes into more depth about the universe with like miscellaneous stories here and there about certain aspects, certain characters, maybe. Because I feel like there is a good universe here. There is something here that deserves to be heard and deserves to be read. And my final grading of this book would be a 3.8 out of a 5. That's my final rating, 3.8 out of a 5. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about this book. I enjoyed it, and I encourage you all to at least give it an honest chance. And if you don't stick with it, I can't say I blame you, but I think you should. And yeah, those are my final thoughts on Ultra 85 by Logic.